In a city that never slept, where skyscrapers pierced the clouds and neon lights painted the streets in vibrant hues, life moved at a relentless pace. Amidst the chaos of honking cars, bustling markets, and crowded subway stations, there lived a woman named Maya. To most people, she was invisible, a mere shadow blending into the background of their busy lives. Her job was simple yet grueling. She cleaned offices after hours when the rest of the world had gone home. Armed with a mop, a bucket, and an unshakable work ethic, Maya spent her nights scrubbing floors, emptying trash bins, and wiping down desks left messy by careless employees. Maya wasn't just another cleaner, though. Beneath her quiet demeanor lay a sharp mind and a heart full of dreams. She often found herself daydreaming about a better life as she polished glass windows or swept dust from corners. But reality always pulled her back. At 32 years old, Maya lived paycheck to paycheck, sharing a tiny apartment with her younger brother, Arjun, who worked odd jobs to make ends meet. Their parents had passed away years ago, leaving them to fend for themselves. Despite the hardships, Maya refused to give up hope. Deep down, she believed that one day, things would change. Her nightly routine took her to various office buildings across the city. But her favorite, or perhaps least hated, was a towering corporate headquarters known as Titan Tech Solutions. It was a place where ambition thrived and power radiated through every corner. The building gleamed with polished marble floors, sleek furniture, and state-of-the-art technology. Yet behind its glamorous facade, Maya saw something else: arrogance. Employees rushed past her without so much as a glance, treating her like part of the scenery rather than a human being. Even the security guards rarely acknowledged her presence unless they needed her to clean up a spill. One fateful night, everything changed. As usual, Maya arrived at Titan Tech shortly after midnight, her cleaning cart clattering softly against the pristine marble floor. She began her work on the 15th floor, where the executive suites were located. This area was off-limits, during the day reserved only for top-level executives and their assistants. For Maya, it felt like stepping into another world, one filled with luxury and privilege far removed from her own reality. As she entered the CEO's office, she noticed something unusual. A stack of papers lay scattered on his desk, clearly forgotten in haste. Normally, such documents would be locked away securely, but tonight, they sat exposed for anyone to see. Curiosity got the better of Maya, and she picked up the top sheet. What she read made her blood run cold. The pages detailed unethical business practices, embezzlement schemes, exploitation of low-wage workers, falsified reports to cover environmental violations, and more. Each line painted a picture of greed and corruption that shocked even someone as cynical as Maya. For a moment, she considered reporting what she had found. Surely someone would care enough to investigate these crimes, right? But then doubt crept in. Who would believe her? A lowly cleaner accusing one of the most powerful men in the city. More likely she'd be fired, or worse, if she spoke out. Instead, Maya decided to take matters into her own hands. Quietly, she slipped the documents into her bag, making copies on the office printer before returning the originals exactly as she had found them. No one would know what she had done. Not yet, anyway. That night, as Maya walked home under the dim glow of streetlights, her mind raced with possibilities. She didn't know how or when, but she vowed to use this information to hold Titan Tech accountable. For now, she kept her discovery hidden, biding her time while continuing her mundane routine. Little did she know, this single act of courage would set her on a path she could never have imagined, a journey that would transform her from an overlooked cleaner into a force to be reckoned with. Over the next few weeks, Maya became increasingly determined to educate herself. She realized that exposing Titan Tech's secrets wouldn't be enough. She needed to understand the inner workings of the corporate world to truly make a difference. During her lunch breaks and late-night shifts, she devoured books on leadership, finance, and strategy. Online courses became her sanctuary, teaching her skills she never thought possible to acquire. Slowly but surely, Maya began to envision a future beyond mops and brooms, a future where she could rise above her circumstances and fight back against the injustices she had witnessed. though no one around her noticed the fire burning within. Maya knew that change was coming. She may have been invisible to the world now, but someday she would step into the light, and when she did, the entire city would feel her presence. Until then, she remained patient, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. After all, revenge is a dish best served cold, and Maya intended to serve hers with precision. Maya's life had always been a series of small, predictable routines. Every night she cleaned the same offices, walked the same streets, and returned to the same cramped apartment she shared with her brother, Arjun. But deep inside, there was a part of her that yearned for more, a part that refused to accept that her destiny was written in dust and mop water. Her late-night studies and secret copies of Titan-Text documents were proof of that. She didn't know how or when, but Maya believed that someday her hard work would pay off. What she didn't expect, however, was for fate to intervene so suddenly and so dramatically. It started with a phone call. One evening, as Maya was preparing dinner for herself and Arjun, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar number, but something compelled her to answer. On the other end of the line was a lawyer named Mr. Kapoor, his voice calm yet formal. "Ms. Maya Sharma?" he asked. When she confirmed her identity, he continued, "I'm calling regarding the estate of your late relative, Mr. Vikram Mehta." At first, Maya thought it was some kind of mistake. Vikram Mehta? She barely remembered him. He was a distant cousin on her mother's side, someone she hadn't seen or heard from in over a decade. As far as she knew, he lived in another city, running a small business that struggled to stay afloat. "Are you sure you have the right person?" she asked hesitantly. "I assure you, Ms. Sharma," Mr. Kapoor replied. "You are indeed the sole beneficiary of Mr. Mehta's will. Unfortunately, he passed away recently, leaving behind his company, Mehta Innovations, which now belongs to you." Maya froze. The phone pressed tightly against her ear. Her mind raced with questions. How could this be? Why would Vikram leave his company to her? And what exactly did owning a failing business mean for someone like her? Despite her confusion, one thing was clear. This was an opportunity she couldn't ignore. For the first time in her life, Maya felt the universe nudging her toward something greater. The next day, after arranging a brief leave from her cleaning job, Maya traveled to the city where Mehta Innovations was based. The journey itself was eye-opening. She had never ventured far from her hometown before, and seeing new landscapes and bustling towns filled her with both excitement and apprehension. When she finally arrived at the modest office building that housed Mehta Innovations, her heart sank. The place looked even worse than she had imagined: peeling paint, broken furniture, and a signboard outside that was barely legible. Inside, the handful of remaining employees worked listlessly, their morale as low as the company's finances. Despite the bleak scene, Maya refused to give up. She met with Mr. Kapoor, who explained the situation in detail. Mehta Innovations had once been a promising startup specializing in eco-friendly packaging solutions. However, poor management, lack of funding, and stiff competition had driven it to the brink of collapse. Vikram had fought hard to keep it alive, but his efforts ultimately proved futile. Now, the responsibility fell squarely on Maya's shoulders. For the first few weeks, Maya immersed herself in learning every aspect of the business. She spent hours going through financial records, meeting with employees, and researching market trends. At times, it felt overwhelming. She wasn't a trained entrepreneur. She was just a cleaner trying to navigate uncharted territory. But Maya had two things going for her: determination and resilience. Every setback only fueled her resolve to turn things around. One of her earliest decisions was to cut unnecessary expenses. She sold off outdated equipment, renegotiated supplier contracts, and streamlined operations to reduce waste. It wasn't easy. Many employees resisted the changes, fearing layoffs, but Maya reassured them that her goal was to save jobs, not eliminate them. Slowly, trust began to build between her and the team. They saw her working alongside them, rolling up her sleeves and tackling problems head-on. For the first time in years, there was a glimmer of hope within the company. As months passed, Maya's efforts began to bear fruit. With her knack for identifying inefficiencies and her ability to inspire others, Meta Innovations slowly clawed its way back from the edge of ruin. She introduced innovative products made from sustainable materials, targeting environmentally conscious consumers. Marketing campaigns highlighted the company's commitment to reducing plastic waste, resonating with a growing segment of the population eager to support green initiatives. Orders trickled in at first, then grew steadily, as word spread about the quality and ethics of Meta Innovations' offerings. But perhaps Maya's greatest asset was her humility. Unlike many CEOs who hid behind closed doors, Maya remained approachable and involved. She listened to feedback from her employees, encouraged creative ideas, and celebrated even the smallest victories. This hands-on leadership style transformed the workplace culture, turning a group of disheartened workers into a motivated team united by a common purpose. Word of Meta Innovations' resurgence eventually reached industry insiders, drawing attention from investors and potential partners. One such investor was Priya Singh, a venture capitalist known for her keen eye for promising startups. Intrigued by the company's rapid growth and ethical mission, Priya arranged a meeting with Maya. During their conversation, Priya was struck by Maya's intelligence, passion, and authenticity. By the end of the meeting, she offered to invest a significant sum in Meta Innovations, providing the capital needed to scale operations and expand into new markets. With Priya's backing, Maya took bold steps to elevate the company to new heights. She hired skilled professionals, upgraded facilities, and launched aggressive marketing campaigns. Within a year, Meta Innovations became a recognized name in the eco-friendly products sector, earning awards for innovation and sustainability. Journalists clamored to interview Maya, eager to learn the story of the woman who had turned a dying business into a thriving enterprise. Overnight, she went from being invisible to becoming a symbol of perseverance and success. Yet despite her newfound fame and fortune, Maya never forgot where she came from. She often reflected on her days as a cleaner, remembering the struggles and sacrifices that shaped her. Those experiences taught her the value of hard work, empathy, and integrity, qualities she carried with her into every decision she made. More importantly, they reminded her why she had embarked on this journey in the first place: to prove that no matter how insignificant you might feel, you have the power to change your circumstances. As Maya stood atop the balcony of her newly renovated office overlooking the bustling city below, she allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would still be challenges to face and battles to fight, but she was ready. After all, she had already conquered the impossible once. Now, armed with resources, knowledge, and unwavering determination, Maya prepared to take on her biggest challenge yet, returning to the lion's den and confronting the very people who had underestimated her. Little did she know, her transformation from cleaner to CEO was just the beginning of a much larger story. One that would see her rise not only in wealth and influence but also in justice and revenge. Maya's rise from a cleaner to the CEO of Meta Innovations was nothing short of extraordinary. Her journey had been filled with sleepless nights, countless sacrifices, and moments of doubt that tested her resolve. But through sheer determination and hard work, she had transformed a failing startup into a thriving business known for its innovation and ethics. Yet, despite her success, Maya couldn't shake the memories of her past: the long nights spent cleaning offices, the dismissive glances of executives who barely noticed her existence, and the secrets she had uncovered in Titan Tech's boardroom. Those secrets still lingered in the back of her mind like a ticking time bomb, waiting for the right moment to explode. That moment came sooner than she expected. One evening, as Maya sat in her sleek office reviewing reports, an invitation arrived via email. It was an exclusive gala hosted by Titan Tech Solutions, the very company she used to clean for. The event promised to bring together top industry leaders, influential investors, and media personalities under one roof. For most people, it would have been just another networking opportunity. But for Maya, it was something else entirely. a chance to confront the people who had once treated her as invisible and expose the corruption she had witnessed years ago. At first, Maya hesitated. Was she ready to step back into that world? To face Richard Langston, the powerful CEO of Titan Tech, whose unethical practices she had documented all those years ago. Doubts crept into her mind, but they were quickly replaced by a burning sense of purpose. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice, for herself, for the employees exploited by Titan Tech, and for the environment damaged by their greed. With renewed resolve, Maya accepted the invitation, knowing full well that this would be the beginning of a battle she couldn't afford to lose. The night of the gala arrived, and Maya prepared meticulously. She chose an elegant black gown that exuded confidence and sophistication, paired with understated jewelry that spoke volumes without being flashy. Her hair was styled neatly, and her makeup accentuated her features, giving her an air of authority. When she stepped out of the car, outside the grand venue, heads turned. No one recognized her at first. How could they? The timid cleaner they had ignored was now a poised and commanding figure, radiating power and grace. Inside the opulent ballroom, guests mingled over champagne and hors d'oeuvres, their laughter echoing off crystal chandeliers. Maya moved through, the crowd with purpose, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on Richard Langston. He stood near the center of the hall, surrounded by admirers eager to bask in his reflected glory. Maya took a deep breath and approached him, her heart pounding but her expression calm. "Mr. Langston," she said, extending her hand with a polite smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you." Richard glanced at her, momentarily puzzled. There was something familiar about her, though he couldn't quite place it. "And you are?" he asked, his tone polite but distant. "Maya Sharma," she replied smoothly. "CEO of Meta Innovations." Recognition flickered across Richard's face, followed swiftly by shock. Memories of a quiet cleaner mopping floors in his office flashed in his mind. His grip on her hand tightened ever so slightly, but his smile remained fixed. "Ah yes, I've heard great things about your company," he said, recovering quickly. "Eco-friendly packaging, isn't it?" "That's correct," Maya said, her voice steady. "We believe in creating sustainable solutions for a better future, something I think every corporation should prioritize." Her words carried a subtle edge, and Richard caught it immediately. He studied her carefully, trying to gauge her intentions. "Indeed," he said cautiously. "Well, perhaps we'll have a chance to discuss potential collaboration sometime." "I'd like that," Maya replied, her smile widening slightly. "But before we talk business, there's something else I'd like to mention. You see, I have certain insights into Titan Tech's operations that might interest you." Richard's jaw tightened imperceptibly. "Insights?" he repeated, his voice tinged with unease. "Yes," Maya continued, leaning in slightly. "For instance, I know all about Project Aurora, the offshore accounts, the falsified environmental reports, and the exploitation of low-wage workers. Fascinating stuff, really." Richard's face paled, but he managed to maintain his composure. "I'm afraid I don't know what you're referring to," he said stiffly. "Perhaps someone has misled you." "Oh, no one misled me," Maya said softly, her gaze unwavering. "Let's just say I stumbled upon some interesting documents a few years ago. Documents that paint a very different picture of Titan Tech than the one you present to the public." For a brief moment, panic flashed in Richard's eyes, but he quickly masked it with a forced laugh. "You must be mistaken," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. "If you'll excuse me, I have other guests to attend to." As Richard walked away, Maya watched him go, satisfaction blooming in her chest. She hadn't revealed everything, not yet, but she had planted a seed of doubt in his mind. More importantly, she had sent a clear message. She was no longer the invisible cleaner he could overlook. She was a force to be reckoned with. Throughout the evening, whispers spread among the attendees. People noticed the tension between Maya and Richard, speculating about what might have transpired. Some even approached Maya, curious about her bold demeanor and confident presence. She handled each interaction with poise, dropping hints about Titan Tech's questionable practices without directly accusing anyone. By the end of the night, rumors were swirling, and Richard looked increasingly uneasy. Back at her apartment later that night, Maya allowed herself a small smile. The gala had gone exactly as planned. She had returned to the lion's den not as prey but as a predator. And while Richard may have dismissed her warning as idle talk, she knew he wouldn't rest easy. Secrets had a way of unraveling, especially when someone was determined to pull at the threads. Over the next few days, Maya began laying the groundwork for her next move. She reached out to trusted journalists, anonymously leaking snippets of information about Titan Tech's unethical practices. She also contacted former employees of the company, encouraging them to share their stories publicly. Slowly but surely, she built a network of allies who were willing to stand against Titan Tech's corruption. Meanwhile, Richard grew increasingly paranoid. He called emergency meetings with his legal team, scrambling to cover up any potential leaks. But no matter how many precautions he took, Maya always seemed to stay one step ahead. Her knowledge of the company's inner workings gave her an advantage he couldn't match. One afternoon, as Maya reviewed the latest batch of evidence she had gathered, Arjun knocked on her office door. "How's it going?" he asked, sitting down across from her. "It's going well," Maya replied, her eyes gleaming with determination. "Better than I expected, actually. Richard is already sweating." Arjun chuckled. "I bet he didn't see this coming. Remember how he used to treat you like dirt?" "Exactly," Maya said, her voice firm. "And now it's my turn to remind him of that." Though her plan was risky, Maya felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. This wasn't just about settling old scores. It was about proving that even the smallest person could make a difference. She had started as a cleaner, overlooked and undervalued, but now she was a CEO with the power to challenge giants, and she intended to use that power wisely. As the pieces fell into place, Maya prepared for the next phase of her mission. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Richard would fight back with everything he had. But she was ready. After all, she had faced far greater challenges in her life and emerged victorious. This time would be no different. With her head held high and her heart ablaze with purpose, Maya stepped forward into the storm she had unleashed. The reckoning was coming, and she would be the one to deliver it. The whispers that started at the gala quickly grew into a roar. Maya's carefully orchestrated campaign against Titan Tech was unfolding exactly as she had planned. With each passing day, new revelations about the company's unethical practices surfaced in the media, sending shockwaves through the corporate world. Journalists dug deeper, uncovering layers of corruption that painted Titan Tech not as a beacon of innovation, but as a symbol of greed and exploitation. For Richard Langston, the CEO who once wielded immense power, the walls were closing in, and he knew it. Maya worked tirelessly behind the scenes, ensuring that every piece of evidence she had gathered over the years was used strategically. She released information bit by bit, keeping the public engaged while simultaneously putting pressure on Titan Tech's board of directors. Her timing was impeccable. She dropped bombshells during shareholder meetings, industry conferences, and even live interviews. Each revelation was like a dagger aimed directly at Richard's heart, chipping away at his authority and credibility. Richard, desperate to salvage his reputation, launched a counteroffensive. He hired top lawyers, issued press releases denying the allegations, and accused Maya of fabricating stories to tarnish Titan Tech's name. In interviews, he portrayed himself as a victim of baseless attacks, claiming that Maya's accusations stemmed from jealousy or personal vendettas. But his defenses rang hollow. The more he tried to deflect blame, the more people began to question his integrity. What truly undermined Richard's efforts was the flood of testimonies from former employees. Encouraged by Maya, these individuals came forward with firsthand accounts of the injustices they had endured under Titan Tech's leadership. Some spoke of being forced to work long hours without overtime pay. Others revealed how the company had falsified safety reports to cut costs, endangering workers' lives. Environmental activists joined the chorus, exposing how Titan Tech had dumped toxic waste into rivers and destroyed ecosystems, all while boasting about its supposed commitment to sustainability. The tide of public opinion turned decisively against Titan Tech. Social media erupted with hashtags like Expose Titan Tech and a Justice for Workers, amplifying the voices of those demanding accountability. Protesters gathered outside Titan Tech's headquarters, holding signs that read, "Stop corporate greed and protect our planet." Even politicians weighed in, calling for investigations into the company's practices. It was clear that Richard could no longer hide behind his polished image. The truth was out, and there was no turning back. Maya watched it all unfold with a mix of satisfaction and resolve. She wasn't driven by malice or revenge anymore, at least not entirely. What fueled her now was the desire to create lasting change. Every scandal exposed, every corrupt executive held accountable, brought her one step closer to achieving justice. And yet, she knew the fight was far from over. Richard still had resources at his disposal, and he wouldn't go down without a fight. One evening, as Maya sat in her office reviewing legal documents, her phone buzzed. It was a call from Priya Singh, the venture capitalist who had invested in Meta Innovations. "You've stirred quite the storm," Priya said, her voice tinged with admiration. "I heard Richard is losing sleep over this. He deserves worse," Maya replied firmly. "But I'm not done yet. I want to make sure Titan Tech pays for everything it's done." "I admire your determination," Priya said. "Just be careful. People like Richard don't give up easily. He'll try to discredit you, maybe even attack your company." "I know," Maya said, her tone unwavering. "But I've prepared for this. I won't let him intimidate me." True to Priya's warning, Richard soon escalated his tactics. His legal team filed lawsuits against Maya and Meta Innovations, accusing them of defamation and conspiracy. They subpoenaed emails, financial records, and internal communications, hoping to find something, anything, that could tarnish Maya's reputation. But Maya had anticipated this move. She had ensured that every document, every email, and every decision made within her company was above reproach. When the court cases began, Maya faced them head-on, presenting her case with clarity and conviction. In courtrooms, Maya proved to be a formidable opponent. Armed with irrefutable evidence and expert witnesses, she dismantled Richard's arguments, piece by piece. Lawyers representing Titan Tech struggled to counter her claims, their faces growing increasingly pale as the hearings progressed. Judges listened intently, often nodding in agreement as Maya laid bare the extent of Titan Tech's wrongdoing. Public support for her cause surged, with many praising her courage and tenacity. Meanwhile, Maya continued to innovate in her own business. Despite the distractions of the legal battle, she refused to neglect Meta Innovations. Under her leadership, the company expanded its product line, secured lucrative contracts, and forged partnerships with environmentally conscious organizations. Her dual focus on fighting injustice and building a sustainable enterprise inspired countless others, including aspiring entrepreneurs and activists alike. As the months dragged on, the strain of the conflict began to show on both sides. Richard looked haggard, his once confident demeanor replaced by anxiety and desperation. Rumors circulated that Titan Tech's board of directors was considering ousting him, fearing that his leadership had become a liability. Investors pulled out. Stock prices plummeted and key executives resigned, leaving the company in disarray. Maya, too, felt the toll of the battle. Late nights spent strategizing with her legal team left her exhausted, and the constant scrutiny took a mental toll. Yet, she persevered, drawing strength from the knowledge that she was fighting for something greater than herself. Arjun often reminded her to take breaks, urging her not to burn out. "You're doing amazing work, sis," he told her one evening, "but you need to rest. You can't win this war if you collapse halfway through." "You're right," Maya admitted, leaning back in her chair. "But sometimes I feel like I can't stop. Not until it's over." "It will be over soon," Arjun said reassuringly. "And when it is, you'll have changed the game for everyone." His words stayed with Maya, giving her the motivation to push forward. She reminded herself why she had started this journey: to hold the powerful accountable, to protect the vulnerable, and to prove that even someone dismissed as insignificant could rise to challenge giants. That purpose kept her grounded, even when the pressure threatened to overwhelm her. Finally, the turning point arrived. A whistleblower within Titan Tech, a senior manager fed up with the corruption, contacted Maya with explosive new evidence. The documents revealed a secret fund used to bribe government officials, manipulate regulatory agencies, and silence whistleblowers. It was the final nail in Titan Tech's coffin. Maya wasted no time sharing the information with investigative journalists and law enforcement agencies. The fallout was immediate and devastating. Authorities raided Titan Tech's offices, seizing computers, files, and financial records. Arrest warrants were issued for several high-ranking executives, including Richard. Facing mounting charges of fraud, embezzlement, and environmental crimes, Richard resigned in disgrace, his legacy reduced to ashes. Shareholders abandoned the company en masse, and creditors moved to liquidate its assets. Within weeks, Titan Tech, the once mighty titan of the corporate world, was nothing more than a cautionary tale. For Maya, victory tasted bittersweet. She had achieved what she set out to do, but the cost had been immense. Countless lives had been affected by Titan Tech's actions, and the scars would linger for years to come. Still, she found solace in knowing that her efforts had sparked meaningful change. Laws were proposed to strengthen regulations on corporate practices, and advocacy groups gained momentum in their fight for workers' rights and environmental protection. As the dust settled, Maya reflected on her journey. From a cleaner working late nights to a CEO taking on one of the largest corporations in the city, she had defied every expectation placed upon her. Along the way, she had inspired others to believe in their own potential, proving that resilience, intelligence, and courage could overcome even the most daunting obstacles. But Maya's story wasn't just about revenge, it was about redemption. She had reclaimed her dignity, honored her parents' memory, and created a legacy rooted in integrity and purpose. Though the battle against Titan Tech was over, Maya knew her mission was far from complete. There were still injustices to address, systems to reform, and futures to shape. With renewed energy, Maya turned her attention to the next chapter of her journey. She envisioned a future where businesses operated responsibly, where workers were treated fairly, and where the planet was protected for generations to come. And as she stepped forward into this new phase, she carried with her the lessons of her past, not as burdens, but as reminders of how far she had come. Her transformation from cleaner to CEO was remarkable, but it was only the beginning. Maya Sharma had proven that anyone, regardless of their background, could rise to greatness. And as she stood tall, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, one thing was certain: her impact would be felt for years to come. The downfall of Titan Tech marked a turning point, not just for Maya but for the entire corporate landscape. The scandal sent shockwaves through boardrooms across the country, forcing companies to reevaluate their practices and hold themselves accountable. For Maya, it was more than a personal victory. It was a triumph of justice over greed, integrity over corruption. But as the dust settled, she realized that her journey was far from over. The fight against injustice wasn't confined to one company or one man. It was a battle that needed to be waged on multiple fronts. In the aftermath of Titan Tech's collapse, Maya became a household name. Media outlets hailed her as a hero, a symbol of resilience and determination. Talk shows invited her to share her story. Magazines featured her on their covers, and universities asked her to deliver keynote speeches. Yet, despite the adoration, Maya remained grounded. She knew that fame wasn't what drove her. It was the desire to create meaningful change. Her newfound platform gave her a voice, and she intended to use it wisely. One of Maya's first initiatives after Titan Tech's demise was to establish the Meta Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting workers' rights, environmental sustainability, and ethical business practices. Funded by a portion of Meta Innovations' profits, the foundation provided grants to grassroots organizations, offered scholarships to underprivileged students, and advocated for policy reforms at both local and national levels. Through the foundation, Maya aimed to ensure that the lessons learned from Titan Tech's scandal wouldn't fade into obscurity, but would instead inspire systemic change. Her efforts quickly gained traction. Activists and community leaders praised the foundation for its transparency and impact, while corporations began to take notice of the growing demand for accountability. Some companies even approached Maya for advice on implementing sustainable practices and fostering inclusive workplace cultures. At first, she was skeptical. After all, many of these same organizations had turned a blind eye to Titan Tech's misdeeds, but she decided to engage with them cautiously. If her guidance could help prevent future scandals, it was worth the effort. Maya also used her influence to champion legislative reforms. She worked closely with lawmakers to draft bills aimed at strengthening labor laws, protecting whistleblowers, and penalizing environmental violations. Her testimony before parliamentary committees carried weight, drawing from her own experiences to highlight the vulnerabilities in existing systems. When the Corporate Accountability Act was passed, a landmark piece of legislation requiring stricter oversight of large corporations, many credited Maya for her pivotal role in its creation. Despite her successes, Maya never forgot where she came from. She often visited the neighborhoods where she had grown up, speaking to young people about the importance of education, perseverance, and self-belief. During one such visit, she met a teenage girl named Priya, who reminded her of herself at that age, bright, ambitious, but weighed down by circumstances. Priya dreamed of becoming an engineer but lacked the resources to pursue higher education. Moved by her determination, Maya sponsored her studies and mentored her personally. Over time, Priya blossomed into a confident young woman, eventually landing a job at Meta Innovations. Watching her thrive filled Maya with pride, reinforcing her belief in the power of opportunity. As years passed, Maya's legacy continued to grow. Meta Innovations flourished, expanding into international markets and earning accolades for its innovative products and ethical standards. The Meta Foundation touched countless lives, empowering marginalized communities and driving positive change. Meanwhile, Maya herself evolved from a crusader for justice into a respected leader whose wisdom and compassion inspired others to follow in her footsteps. But perhaps Maya's greatest achievement was the shift in public perception she helped bring about. Before her rise, cleaners, janitors, and other low-wage workers were often dismissed as invisible, their contributions overlooked. Maya shattered that stereotype, proving that greatness isn't defined by titles or wealth but by character and action. Her story resonated with millions of people around the world, sparking conversations about equality, dignity, and the value of every individual's work. Even Richard Langston's fate served as a cautionary tale. After his resignation, he faced numerous lawsuits and investigations, ultimately losing much of his fortune. Stripped of his power and prestige, he faded into obscurity, a shadow of the man he once was. While some might have felt vindicated by his downfall, Maya chose not to dwell on it. Revenge had been a catalyst for her journey, but it wasn't the destination. What mattered most was the difference she had made, and the example she had set for others. One evening, as Maya stood on the balcony of her penthouse apartment overlooking the city skyline, she reflected on how far she had come. From scrubbing floors in dimly lit offices to standing atop the corporate ladder, her journey had been nothing short of extraordinary. But it wasn't the wealth or recognition that brought her peace. It was knowing that she had fought for something bigger than herself. She had taken on giants and won, not for glory, but for justice. Arjun joined her on the balcony, handing her a cup of tea. "You've done incredible things, sis," he said softly. "Mom and Dad would be so proud." Maya smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I hope so," she replied. "They taught me to never give up no matter how hard things got. I think about them every day." "They'd love seeing what you've become," Arjun added. "Not just because of your success, but because of the person you are." Maya nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. Her parents' sacrifices, Her brother's unwavering support and her own relentless drive had all played a part in shaping her journey. And though the road had been long and fraught with challenges, she wouldn't trade it for anything. Looking out at the city below, Maya allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The lights twinkling in the distance reminded her of the countless possibilities that lay ahead. There was still work to be done, always, but she was ready. With each passing day, she grew stronger, wiser, and more determined to leave the world, better than she had found it. In the years that followed, Maya's story became legendary. It was told in classrooms, written about in books, and shared in conversations among aspiring entrepreneurs and activists. People marveled at how a cleaner had risen to challenge one of the most powerful corporations in the city, exposing corruption and inspiring change. But beyond the headlines and accolades, what truly resonated was her message, that anyone, regardless of their background, can rise above adversity and make a difference. For Maya, redemption wasn't just about avenging past wrongs. It was about building a future filled with hope and possibility. She had transformed pain into purpose, invisibility into influence, and despair into triumph. And as she looked toward the horizon, she knew that her legacy would endure, not just in the lives she had touched, but in the countless others who would carry her torch forward. The city lights shimmered like stars, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is always light to guide the way. Maya took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air fill her lungs. She wasn't just a cleaner anymore, and she never would be again. She was a leader, a change maker, and a beacon of hope. And as long as she lived, she vowed to keep fighting for a better tomorrow. Because for Maya Sharma, the journey wasn't just about revenge, it was about redemption. And redemption, she realized, was the greatest victory of all.